Hello and welcome to the Field Engineer channel. I want first to thank our viewers and listeners for your continued interest. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and enter your comments to help us better tailor our content. Our talk today will be with Bruce Breeden. Bruce joined the field engineer community recently and he just retired after a rich career in technology, managing service operations, and sales in different global regions of the world. He is now a consultant in service strategy, organization development, and training. Welcome, Bruce.
Welcome, Guy. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Bruce, let's start with a little bit of your history. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your professional life.
Well, I guess as retired, it can be extensive, so I'll try to keep it short. But as you said, today I operate as a consultant in the field service industry, particularly customer care type strategies. But I've been in the field service industry my entire career for 46 years. Starting and in fact, I was only 19 years old when I started in the industry. I started out working on ATM machines back in the day, 1978, for National Cash Register Corporation. But I had been from a plumbing family. My father was a plumbing contractor. My two older brothers were plumbers, and that was my destiny in life. And I really wanted to learn other things, and I had become a fireman. Went to the fire academy and also had an emergency medical technician, certificate. So I really wanted to be a firefighter. But the reality back then, particularly, and probably so now, there were very few jobs. So the wait list was in the thousands in my area to become a paid fireman. So I got the idea of joining the Air Force and learning electronics. In high school, I loved electronics. We had a shop class. So I figured this is the perfect ticket. And sure enough, I went to Texas and for the Air Force and went to basic training and then electronics school for a year. And the lucky thing, and I'm not sure how I got there, but is I became a reservist after graduating from tech school. And so here at age 19, I was fully trained from the Air Force with some experience and was able to go out and get a civilian job while I worked as a reservist in the Air Force for the next 4 years. Okay. So my first job was working on the ATMs. Actually, it started in the shop. I was a shop technician and then moved out to the field. But within a year, I moved on to a company I spent the next 24 years with called Beckman Coulter. Actually, it was Beckman Instruments at the time. Later it became the Coulter part. But it was a scientific and medical instrumentation industry. And there I became a field engineer. Not sure what that was at the time, but that was my job title. And it was a wonderful experience and more to tell. But essentially, I did every job we had in that service organization over the 24 years I was there. And went back to school at night, spent 15 years in evening and weekend school, one class at a time while I was traveling, as we do as field engineers. And but plugged away. And next thing you know, I ended up earning an MBA, a management in business administration, and had a wonderful career, doing different roles within the field service organization for Beckman and other companies, thereafter.
Interesting. And I see here on your profile with Beckman Coulter, 24 years, you moved up to district service management, support and training manager, service marketing manager, national service manager, director of service, and then you moved to other companies. What can you say to field engineers who look at this profile and, it's their dream to advance in their career and move up the ladder? What can you tell them? What can they do to open doors for themselves and be able to grow and advance in their career?
It's a great question because the message is it's possible, and that's really the story of field service. Is because what we do with interfacing with different personalities and different problems day in and day out, and having those responsibilities for your company as ultimately a brand ambassador,
Mhm.
problem solver, trusted advisor to the customer. A lot of people don't realize it, but as we do that over and over again and gain those, valuable experiences, it is a platform to leverage one to do whatever they may be interested in doing in field service. I mean, sure, it takes a lot of hard work and, discipline on the side, um, maybe a little bit of luck as well, right? With the right company at the right time and situations like that. Um, but it's very possible. So that's the first message I wanted to instill, is because we have that unique base of experiences. But the advice is to really define your roadmap,
Mhm.
because field service could be a technical pathway. It could be being a specialist or a trainer. It doesn't have to be the traditional management pathway like I took. So it starts with defining your pathway. But there's so many interesting areas in service today. For example, I had a job in that list you had there as the marketing manager for field service. That was the best job. It was like making pizza, as a teenager. It was, you could be creative, it could be fun. You used all your experiences in delivering service to actually create service programs of value for the customer. But
Right.
people don't ordinarily think about jobs like that.
Yeah.
So I would encourage all to really sit back and define your roadmap on what your interests are. And it's relative to whom you work with, right? Your company and your particular opportunities, perhaps. But start there. And once you have something designed, and it doesn't mean it has to stay that way either. I mean, we evolve and so forth. And it could be opportunistic. But define that roadmap and then work towards it. And there's a lot to be said there. But definitely you have to start with a roadmap, because if you don't have a plan, right, we
Yeah.
plan to fail, as they say.
Exactly. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, the field engineers are ambassadors for their employers, and
Mhm.
they are trusted by their customers. And that's why doors are always open for them whenever they are entering a customer site, versus you see sometimes sales
Right,
representative waiting outside
right, right.
while the service engineer is heading towards the machine to do his job. And this creates the quality relationship between the field engineer and their customers.
Absolutely, but let's also give credit to our field engineer community. They earn that, right?
Yes,
Because even though those doors are open, like you say, doesn't mean they're always going to remain open, right? If we don't follow through and do those fundamentals. But
definitely.
yeah, it's funny. I've had a lot of visitors that want to go in that building with me from the sales organization or the marketing organization, because you do have that access, but it's
Yeah,
a trusted access, right? And that's why I think our community is so special, because we take care of customers. And
exactly.
in fact, I work with a client today, and one of their mottos is a very good, long-standing, phrase that sales sells the equipment the first time, service sells it thereafter, right?
Exactly.
And that is an enormous responsibility to do so. But there is the truth of our industry and the value of our field engineers to contribute to that.
Yeah, and they become like experts for the customers, because customers consult with them about a new machine or the upcoming technology before they open their ears to the sales rep who's coming to sell them the new technology, let's say, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It
And do you
makes
know,
me think. Go ahead.
no, just to say that It's by doing the job right that field engineers prove themselves and prove their qualities to their employer and to their manager, which open doors for them to advance on a new path that they can open for themselves. Back to what you were saying earlier, how they can advance in their career. So it's really about proving themselves and taking on sometimes additional responsibilities, additional projects to show their skills and their competencies to advance.
You and I talked earlier about what is it that, from a coaching standpoint, that or managing remote teams, that's valuable.
Yeah.
And to your point, the days when you go out with your team in the field and you meet their quote customers and you sit down and see how they interact and you see that these are trusted relationships, sometimes just friendly relationships,
Mm-hmm.
but often, very deep relationships. But you see the ability of the field engineer growing or the team growing and their ability to do it as they see the light and understand it's not just a job, as the Navy would say, right? It's an adventure, and uh, you just get so proud of how they're developing and how they're nurturing those relationships for the value of your company.
Totally agreed.
Mm.
Talking about field engineering, you have written a book
Mm.
called The Intentional Field Service Engineer. I started reading the book. I haven't advanced much yet, and I would like to talk about this book maybe at another time where we can dedicate a full talk about your book. What can you tell us about your book? Maybe some snippets about some key aspects that you had mentioned in the book
Mm.
that the field engineers can benefit from.
Sure. Actually, I wrote the first edition of the book in 2016. I remember the idea coming to me driving to a customer site visit and just reflecting on how fortunate I was to be from a blue collar background and a plumbing family to find myself in this industry called field service. I did the second edition. I think it was published around 2021 period. So not too long after the first edition. But basically, it's a story about the field service industry, and the field engineer, the field service engineer, is the main character. And it's a reflection again on the opportunities in this industry, particularly for those with more of a technical or blue collar background, and what it affords. And ultimately, I chose that word, very deliberately, intentional, because you have to have intention to really, again, going back to this roadmap, to have a roadmap, number one, and to follow through on that roadmap to get the career that you're looking for. So it provides a roadmap for field engineers, to define that roadmap and execute on that roadmap to get the career that they are looking for. That's what the book is about.
Right. And it's a key word, the intentional field service engineer. It goes very well with the idea of roadmap because it's not really going with the flow. You have to be really prepared every day when you go out to perform service. Sometimes we're driving and we might have half an hour or an hour to get to the site, and we are already thinking about how we're going to attack the problem, our plan of attack to troubleshoot and find the root cause of the problem and fix it as quickly as possible to bring the machine back to full functionality.
Correct.
So
Correct.
this is only a small aspect of the intentional work that field engineers do, but I'm sure there's a lot more in the book. And hopefully we can come back with another video where we talk more about your book. Regarding the work of the field engineers, how do you think they can maybe stand out day to day with their planning on different levels, right? Because they have all the tools at their disposal. and they are supposed to walk in, walk out as quickly as possible, resolving the problem for the customer. So how do you see them performing that to the best possible way?
I think one, it's, when we say expediency, right? Get in and get out. Obviously, bringing the equipment back up online is critical, right? But actually, spending a little more time after that with the customer. In fact, it was just last week I was at a food processing facility, working with some service, in this case, technicians, and they were so adept at making sure, one, they repaired the equipment, but second, they looked up and down the line to see what else was going on, and then the eyes and the ears, if you will, because I remember years ago a very good technical instructor saying, Bruce, and to the rest of the class at the time, your job's not just to fix the instrument in the laboratory that I was there for. Your job is to fix the customer. And I never forgotten that. And that's what I saw last week is these technicians were very skilled at making sure they were taking care of the entire customer. What else can we do for you? But look around and make your own observations. You're the expert in the room. You're the expert on that equipment. And that brings a lot of value. So I would say that's a huge differentiator of field engineers that understand that this is our responsibility, not just to go in and replace the part, get the unit back and going. It's the entire relationship. It could be generating leads, for your sales organization. It could be taking care of a problem. It could be making sure your paperwork, even though we enter it, via a CRM on a mobile app today, but what does it tell us? What can you learn from that? It's the entire job that you're doing, as well as communicating with your dispatch office and things like that. So those are the things that really differentiate, exceptional, or as I call them, intentional field engineers from the also ran.
Right. And you mentioned an important point about looking at everything at the customer site, because touch points happen often between the field engineer and the customer more than any other employee in the company. And it's really crucial that the field engineer stays in touch with their sales rep, their technical support, their manager, and share with them what they see at the customer sites. That builds a strong relationship not only between the field engineer and the customer, but also between the vendor, the company, and the customer, because it is a collective effort to succeed and to maintain business. It's really a teamwork, as we say. It's an easy word that we keep saying, but when we think about it, it's really that. It's really working as a team day in and day out with all your partners within the organization.
That's so important, Guy. The resourcefulness and that 360-degree view. I'd offer up even another perspective of that is, one of the people I wrote about in the book that became the best field engineer. He was a role model to me. He was a coach to me. We worked on the same product lines in the time, and he was just the expert, but he was also a pleasure to be around. I've had some folks to my house, for example. I couldn't wait for the moment they were done with the job and to go, right. Yeah, because of mannerisms and things like that. So when you're there and the customer has confidence and they take pleasure that you're there visiting, that's when you really know you're making a difference as that problem solver and ultimate brand ambassador.
Exactly. And that builds a strong relationship with the customer so much that they open up to you and they tell you things that they would not reveal to anyone else in the company. And this is where it's important to share some knowledge with the organization to help the customer in a better way. Talking about teamwork and teams, And having been a manager for the longest time, what do you consider the most satisfying but also the most challenging parts, maybe, of managing a team? And how did you, as a manager, maintain a work-life balance?
There's a lot in that question, really. Uh, so, as the team leader, if you will, understanding that your job is primarily to be the coach. That's the best value you can bring to the table, and so therefore, as we were talking about a little earlier, the pride that you take seeing your team develop, because we all have our strengths and weaknesses, and for someone that's perhaps a little more introverted than others, or maybe someone's too extroverted, they come on too strong, but to see everyone accept coaching as it is, that someone's going to tell you, hey, here's what I saw. They're not criticizing you particularly. They're saying, here's what I saw.
Mhm.
And, let them understand the gap, right? And then how to work on that gap. But to see people constantly develop themselves and to be focused on what you prioritize as a focus area or goal and so forth. But to see them act on that and develop in front of you is the most satisfying thing. It could be the little things, I remember, I mean it to be a little funny, I guess, but I remember driving with someone, and every time they had something to say, we went 15 miles an hour faster. Every time I said something, they
Uh-huh.
eased up on the gas pedal. And it was just a funny observation. I said, John, you realize, every time you say something, you push down on the gas pedal and we end up speeding. And but just to be that person that offers up that feedback. And when you say work-life balance, it's tough in the field, right? With the travel and always, you could be away from family, you could be in a different city, and you're trying to get around in rush hour, and you're not familiar with it. There are a lot of stresses, not to mention, the responsibility to get that equipment up and take care of the customer.
Right.
So I think the key is to engagement, and we have it so easy today with connectivity and all the tools that we have that we didn't have in so-called old days. Um, we have to leverage that, right? And I think a lot of us went through the pandemic and learned those lessons too, that while we were so isolated, that we deliberately went the extra mile to stay connected, to our teams and, our friends and things like that. And I think that lesson should carry forward, because when you have a manager, a leader, a coach, if you will, that wants to hear about what's working, what's not, offers their support, offers a line of encouragement, reminds you of the direction and things like that,
Mhm.
um, that is a stress reliever, because someone's understanding you, and it can't be replaced by the infield visit. That's very valuable, but we can still stay connected daily, weekly, whatever it may need to be, and I think that really helps the work-life balance.
Right. And talking about coaching, what advice can you give to the field engineers on that aspect? How would they consider being coached by their manager?
I think to see the value of it, right? I remember my coaching was either through my senior technician, field engineer members I worked with, and it was coaching, right? They were helping me technically. They were helping me understand the job, understand the company, the processes and stuff like that. But to be open, because there's great value. It doesn't always have to be from your direct supervisor, your manager. But if it is, we need to be open. I mean, a coaching is a gift, and when applied correctly, it could be criticism, right? It could be an observation about, well, that didn't really go so well because X, Y, and Z. And we can't be defensive about it, because we just need to understand they provide us the 360 feedback to the standard. And so as we receive the coaching, to be open to it and to act on it. right? Because a lot of us will say things, but follow through is a whole different thing. And so to really act on your words and to understand, well, here's where I'm at, here's where I want to go, and see that you are getting there. That's being receptive to coaching, and coaching's not an easy thing to provide either. So to appreciate those who do take the time and do coaching well is another message I would pass
Yeah.
on. Mm.
Uh, Even for the manager, it's not an easy task because they don't want to come across as blaming or, you know, wanting to penalize the field engineer. It's rather uh, being observant,
Right.
bringing some value to what they have observed and feeding that back to the field engineer to help them improve in some areas and keep doing what they do well in some other areas. And as you said, the satisfaction of the manager is seeing the field engineer develop and grow and become more proficient, become better at what they do. I guess this is, at the end of the day, how we feel that we have accomplished something. On one side, happy customers. On the other side, team members who are growing and developing and helping them advance in their career and realize their dreams.
It's a beautiful thing. If you think about the field visit of the manager coming into the territory with the field engineer or the group of field engineers, that manager could easily just come into town, spend hours a day, take them out to dinner, whatever, and be on their way. And a lot of us would say, "Oh, that was good, right?" But as you just described, that's hard work.
Mhm.
It's kind of like having a meeting and going through the time to make sure everyone who is attending that meeting understands, here's the objective, here's the agenda to get to that objective, and here are the results we expect from that meeting versus just spending 90 minutes with nothing accomplished, right? We've all
Yes.
experienced that. So to have that intention again,
Mhm.
and expertise from that manager should be highly valued and appreciated because that is a gift for someone to come in with the objective to really observe and to help that person or that group of people develop for the betterment of the customer outcome.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful thing to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. We are coming close to the end of our talk today. Any words that come to mind that you would like, or ideas that you would like to share before we wrap up our talk today?
Sure. And thank you for the time. It's been a great conversation, Guy. I would say enthusiasm.
Mhm.
This is an opportunity of a lifetime to be in this industry and to have enthusiasm, to have self interest, and to channel that energy to what you're looking to do is a great opportunity. And I think it starts with enthusiasm, self reflection, and having that plan, as we talked about, that roadmap. I think it will take one far. And while there may be some obstacles, right, it may take
Yep.
some time, some patience. It's a starting point because if you don't define what's important for you, no one else is going to necessarily do that. And that's what I mean by intentional. And there's an old saying I love, and you see it over and over again, particularly in the sports area, but it's the pain of discipline versus the pain of regret. You know, Tomorrow will come soon enough and we'll lose today, right? So, what do we do today to work towards our roadmap? And, that's my message, being intentional.
That's a very wise message. Bruce, thank you very much for sharing your time and your experience with us today. It has been a real pleasure. And thanks again to our viewers and listeners. Please look out for more interviews and discussions coming soon. Bye for now.